Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte, and we're here live at the Build studio in New York City. It's Friday, my friends. We made it, all right? It's here. And we've got an amazing lineup for you today. I won't waste any time. The great Guy Branum is here. Make some noise. How about that, everybody? Guy's in the house. So excited. Guy has written and worked on some of the funniest shows on television, like The Mindy Project, Chelsea Lately, and Billy on the Street. He can currently be seen as the host of Talk Show, The Game Show, one of the greatest ideas in the history of ideas. Guys, I freaking love this show. Here's how it works, all right? So guests go on, and they're pitted against one another in a competition to see who is the better talk show guest. If you're having trouble wrapping your head around how that works, that's because you've never seen anything like it before, and I can assure you it is brilliant. So I'm really excited to get him out here. We're going to talk all about it. Before we do that, I believe we have a video from the show, so Greg, let's go ahead and run that clip.
Nick, your game is called Nick's Licks. In the world of sitcom, moments before going to commercial, a musical sting is used to cap the scene. In your game, I will provide you with a brief description of a scene, and you must play an appropriate guitar lick that will take us to commercial. You will be judged on the following 3 factors: major chords, minor chords, and open sevenths. Nick, are you ready to play?
Yes.
Okay. Can I get 45 seconds on the clock, please? Let's begin. It's 9:0210, and Donna just found out she is pregnant.
She might keep it.
It's Ross's wedding in London, but Rachel just showed up uninvited.
Bitch.
Tanner just solved all his daughter's problems with a hug. Vanessa Huxtable's friends begin drinking at an unsupervised party, then she chugs. That's time! Nick Thune, how do you think you did?
I really felt the judges on that, and I really felt like the audience was with me, and so I'm gonna say I did great.
I thought you were super handsome and talented. Let's cross back to the desk while Casey gives you a score.
Ladies and gentlemen, Guy Branum, make some noise.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
Thank you so much for being here, Guy. I'm so excited to have you here and to talk about this show.
Talk Show, The Game Show, 11 p.m. on Thursdays on True TV.
Is that when you can find this? Is that when it is on?
It is, yes. Or you can stream it through the True TV app.
That is incredible. We're going to say that at least 20 more times before our time is up here.
It's my job to plug projects. On my show, on Talk Show, The Game Show, you get 2 points for plugging a project, and I'm always scared that on somebody else's talk show, I'm going to be bad at talk shows after I criticize people for being bad at talk shows.
That has to be a lot of pressure, right?
It
you
is.
Carry that around, because now you've made yourself the de facto self-proclaimed expert on talk shows.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one of the nice things is I'm just the host. I'm just there to facilitate. There are 2 other meaner people who are judges who tell people when they've done a bad job.
They are fantastic as well. Look, I want to get deep into this show and talk about where it came from and how you came up with the idea, and also say when people can watch it. But before we do any of that, just...
Matt, do you by that mean 11 p.m. on True TV on Thursdays?
Yes, or if they don't have, they could also stream it in the True TV app.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
I'll stop interrupting with that, I'm sorry.
We're up to at least 6 or 7 points, man. You're crushing it right now. No, but honestly, just Guy, how are you doing, man? How's the ride been so far? How's it going?
Oh, it's delightful fun to get to have a TV show of your own, and talk shows are the most fun because people come and you have a good time, and people who are on scripted shows are always on set and they're cold and they're having to ask a PA to get coffee for them. And here, there's just coffee anyway, you know? There's just coffee around. When we're doing Talk Show, The Game Show, I'm essentially just throwing 2 cocktail parties a day, and that's a nice life.
That's not bad. So you're doing 2 a day. You're not doing the Jeopardy 5 a day thing.
I mean, that's the dream for the future. Is, produce 25 episodes and then make them all in a week.
And just be done.
Yeah, and then just Trebek it for the rest of the month.
Trebek it.
Yeah.
Just Trebecking it up, man. Just living the dream. Do you, your 2015 special, Effable, or release, your album that you put out, is absolutely amazing as well. Have you been able to find time for comedy in between this show and keep up stand-up, or?
That's so kind of you. And the answer is no. I have not written new jokes in 3 to 4 years, all right? It's fun to imagine people can do everything. We love these stories of like, oh, he wrote and directed and edited it. But we, you can't Gerwig it in absolutely every field. So for the past year, working on Talk Show the Game Show, and my work as writer and producer on the Mindy Project sort of took up my life, and I couldn't figure out new hilarious things to say about airplane food.
Well, I'm sure they'll come to you in time. Right now, I'm happy this is where you're focusing all your energy, though, because this is pretty amazing. So let's go back. Let's talk about the beginning. This is a live show that you used to do, this concept, right? So
Yeah.
how far back does this idea go?
When I was in law school, I was on the Quiz Bowl team at the University of Minnesota. One day I went on a long van ride to a Quiz Bowl tournament that was somewhere else in the Midwest. And we were talking about TV, and I was like, oh, talk shows have gotten so bad. There should be a talk show where you score points by doing the sorts of things you're supposed to do on a talk show. And then for 10 years, I did nothing about it. And then one night I was drunk and I was like, what would the rules be? And then I wrote the rules and I started doing it live at the Improv in LA.
Are the rules that you wrote then the same rules that you abide by now on the show? Because I do have them and I want to bring them up.
Oh, that's exciting.
Can we take a look just at some of these rules? They are amazing. Some of them are pretty obvious too, like the name drop, the telling an anecdote. You expect that.
And it's not losing points. And we made this, so clearly someone on my production staff screwed up. These are just things that you would get a yellow card for. But like murder as a thing that you get a yellow card for, that's clearly something I made up when I was drunk in 2011. But delay of game that comes after it, that's something we just figured out during the course of the show. Like, hey, we need to stop people if they're just not doing anything productive.
Is that where the penalty box comes from?
That's where the penalty box comes from. So on Talk Show the Game Show, there are multiple levels of sanctions. You can get a yellow card, you can get sent to the penalty box, you can get thrown out of the game, and you can get banned for life from Talk Show the Game Show.
I've watched 3 or 4 episodes. I haven't seen anyone get banned for life yet. Has that happened yet?
No. One of the wonderful things about Talk Show the Game Show is you never know in a particular episode what's going to happen.
Go off the rails.
So we went several episodes and we were like, is anybody going to end up in the penalty box? And then some people got in the penalty box. Some people made some bad choices. In the live show, I believe comedian Moshe Kasher is the only person to have been banned for life. But let's hope we get a second season and somebody really comes to make a name for themselves.
If you don't mind me asking, what did Moshe do to get banned for life? This is the internet. You can say anything.
Moshe stormed the Tournament of Champions to protest not being included in the Tournament of Champions. And he grandstanded for a little bit, and that was fun, and then they banned him for life.
And then it was not fun anymore.
Yeah.
Is there a small, tiny sort of part of your brain when you start a show that goes, I wonder if someone will murder tonight? Is that...
I mean, it would be good television, let's be honest. Everybody's very into true crime, and it would hardly be the first time that a talk show has resulted in a murder. You guys are too young to remember the Jenny Jones murder.
Jones. Oh.
Yes.
Too soon.
Too soon. But it's something that we know from the history of talk shows might happen, so we have a rule about it.
You're ready. You guys are prepared.
Yeah.
It can happen,
Yes.
so why not have the rule ready to go? Talk about the process of going from stage to screen, bringing it onto television. Were there challenges you didn't expect? Was it a lot easier than you thought it would be?
I mean, the thing is I basically made the show because I wasn't working at Chelsea Lately anymore and I missed talk shows. So I built it as a show that was done in 45 minutes, But still, trying to put something on TV, the hardest thing is trying to put something on TV that feels live and feels alive and feels like people are screwing around, because every TV producer wants to know exactly what's going to happen every second of the show. And if you say, yeah, so one of the dudes may just throw somebody out, they're going to be like, we can't do that. We have to tell their publicist whether we're going to throw them out. And so it's been interesting. It's so nice in this second run of shows where we understand the show a little bit better and some chaos can happen. We have a really great episode with David Koechner from from Anchorman.
And just being hilarious.
And he just went off the rails. We briefly lost control of the show. I think the audience came in third on that episode. It's important to understand that a member of the audience came out and was actively competing in the show for a period of time.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It does have that vibe of anything could happen at any moment. This is totally a bunch of people hanging out and having fun. But you raise a good point that there is always that opposing force of like, well, the publicist needs to sign off or no this
Well, I mean,
and so on
and
and
that's
so
the
forth.
terrible thing about talk shows now is that so frequently they want to make it feel like it is live and organic, and really what you have is Jimmy Fallon playing extremely choreographed charades with celebrities.
Yeah.
Like, watch Jimmy Fallon celebrities. They get charades. They guess wrong twice and then they guess right. Every time they guess wrong twice and then they guess right, and it's a gross thing to watch.
Yeah, it's it's the perfect way to describe it. Have you had somebody yet who either didn't get it or was maybe blindsided by some of the, because they're expecting a talk show, or no, everyone's been briefed. They all know what they're walking into.
I mean, we've had pretty great guests so far. Like a lot of people, Rashad Jennings, who is a football player, I don't know for what team or what he does. That's not what I'm about. But he came on the show, and I was really expecting him to be like nervous, and he like went at it, and he was so funny. It was really delightful. We also had 2 Real Housewives, and I was like, okay, they're gonna be out of it. They're not gonna understand what's going on, and nobody is better at talk show the game show than a Real Housewife. I mean, they all at all times have a small bag of their skincare line ready to hand you, and that's gonna get you 5 points for a gift.
Well, they
Maybe
understand
4 points for a gift. I should know my own rules.
They understand the significance of telling people stuff like that they can see Talk Show the Game Show on Thursdays at 11:10 Central on True TV.
Yes, that's very true. It's very true. The one thing is, sometimes people do show up just thinking that it's their job to chat and respond to questions. And the thing is like when you're on a talk show, you need to know where you're going. Yeah. Like you need to have an understanding that you are going to mention that Talk Show the Game Show can be watched at 11:10 Central on True TV every Thursday.
And in the app.
What?
And in the app.
And in the app. And yeah, I mean, I'm always forgetting social. It's at Guy Branum on Instagram.
I'm just trying to help with the cause.
No, it's much appreciated. And like being a talk show host is a weirdly hard job. I mean, admittedly, you are just sitting in an air-conditioned space chatting with someone, but you also have to understand how much to like be pulling them along and how much to just like get out of the way of their story.
Exactly. Who you were talking about the Housewives and how amazing they were. Who would be? You've already had some incredible guests, but who's a big get for you? Like, who's your white whale?
Well, I mean, for me, it's not just about one guest. It's about a combination of guests. It's about how these 3 people will interact with each other. So I would have to say Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yeah, I mean, she's got good stories. She got strong takes on a lot of things. I would say Macho Man Randy Savage, because he's full of electricity and he has those Slim Jims to promote. And then, like, just for like, you know, like a bit of eye candy, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Oh, yes. We're all on board for this.
Yes.
That's the perfect lineup.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder...
Do you know Justin's people?
I don't, but I know people that might know his people.
Okay.
Yeah, we can work on this after.
You always have to be booking the show. I don't know if I'm gonna get more episodes, but I need to be finding out if I have contacts.
Although, full disclosure, my ignorance of how this works, I know 3 Canadian people, and I assume everyone in Canada knows each other, so that's what I mean.
There aren't that many people in Canada,
so
it seems fair.
It's a safe bet,
yeah.
Right? It's a safe bet.
Also, Justin Trudeau was a snowboarding instructor for like 3 years. He probably met a lot of people that way. Yeah.
He's got a lot of people that way. Talk to me about working with Wanda and Paige and Push It Productions, and had you worked with either of them or Wanda Sykes before or anything like that, and what's that process been like?
I had met them a little bit when I was very briefly on Last Comic Standing. It didn't go well. But I would say the most significant thing is everyone's cliche is that working with lesbians, they're going to be like domestic and somber and just want to talk about their dogs. And Wanda Sykes and Paige Hurwitz, the 2 women who run Push It Productions, are like essentially closing down every bar that they've ever been into. When we had a wrap party for the first season, I like left at 1 and Wanda Sykes was still on the dance floor. So I mean, that's really fun. And also, Wanda, like, is such an intense competitor that she loves doing Talk Show, the game show, but more than that, she loves getting pissed off at people she thinks might have done better than her on Talk Show, the game show. When Tiffany Haddish came on and outscored her, Wanda was like, she like bolted into the studio and was like, I need to take her on.
That's amazing. So is that in the works? Are you going to do the Tournament of Champions? Have I missed the Tournament of Champions?
It's a dream. You have to talk to the people at True TV. They're the ones who decide whether we get more episodes. For now, all you can do to try to make that happen is to watch the show at 11:10 Central on Thursdays on True TV or through the app. And it helps more if you're a Nielsen family. Are any of you guys Nielsen families?
Any? It's not looking like. Do you know anybody in a Nielsen family? Okay, this is a bust.
One of my writers' friends is a Nielsen family. He's just like a dude in his early 30s, and he came to our premiere party, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing here? You should be at your home watching this show.
Right now?
Yes.
How do you become a Nielsen? Do you reach out to Nielsen? Like,
you can't expect me to know everything, Matt.
I'm sorry.
Okay?
I'm sorry. That's on me. That's my fault.
Fair.
Let's we're in a set. We're gonna go to the audience in a minute, but I do have a few more questions. I'm excited, especially as the self-proclaimed expert here, accidentally. What are your favorite talk show and game show hosts going back? Do you remember growing up who you loved to watch?
Oh, I mean, game show wise, I love Match Game. I love like celebrity game shows, and Gene Rayburn did the right amount of like underlining, haha, they just used a funny euphemism for boobs. I think that's funny because I like boobs. That was always really great. Like the prissy distance of Alex Trebek. You know, he's like barely engaged, and then he comes to a French word he can overpronounce, and he really digs into it. You know, I love David Letterman. He was always screwing with people, and like, I'm very old, and so I remember when Joan Rivers would guest host The Tonight Show, and as a like tiny little gay child, I was like, she's so mean and wearing a flowing gown, and I like that was my dream. And I actually ended up getting to work with her on Fashion Police for a while, and there is nothing on this planet better than watching the Golden Globes with Joan Rivers.
That's what I was gonna say. In your bio, there's a lot of amazing things listed when I was reading, but the last sentence is, oh, and he watched the Golden Globes at Joan Rivers' house.
Yeah, like when you wrote for Fashion Police, your job was just to go watch award shows with like Joan and her grandson, who had like the weird savant powers of a straight child being raised by Joan Rivers and Melissa Rivers. So like successfully could parse the difference between like, you know, Emma Stone and that redheaded girl who was on Suburbia. Like, it was uncanny.
It's the missing link, is what it was.
Yeah, I mean, he just, like, the child probably couldn't tie his own shoes, but he could identify the third lead of Vampire Diaries.
That sounds like an amazing time. We're gonna turn...
Matt, can we just take a moment to commemorate one thing?
I would love to.
Supernatural is still on the air. I feel like we need to talk about that as a people more.
Yes.
That show has been on for 15 years. No one watches it. Those people are around. Good for Jared Padalecki.
He's getting it done. He's getting it done. And I would say the Nielsen houses must be to blame, right?
I know, it's so true.
Gotta be who's watching it.
Maybe the way you become a Nielsen house is just really like supernatural.
Love Supernatural.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. Let's fingers crossed there's some overlap between those people and their love of game show, talk show mashups. Guys, we've got some questions in the room. Let's go ahead. The first one, I believe, is right here.
Hi, so I'm wondering, for the writing process, was there something that you really wanted to put in the show, but just for whatever reason couldn't make it?
Oh, that's a really great question. And one of the weird things about writing for Talk Show, the game show, is like you're not writing just jokes. You're writing you're writing setups or situations for other people to be funny, for other people to have a good time. And that's a weird and hard kind of writing. The answer is no. We did some really stupid things on this show. We have a Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego map of historically black colleges and universities. That's not something you're going to see on other television programs. But one really cool thing I got to do is I used to write for Billy on the Street. And so when Billy came on the show, I was like, we're not writing a game for you. You're just going to do a game that I wrote for your show and you rejected.
Brilliant.
So it was a game called Meryl Streep Rule or American Girl Doll. And it is much harder than you think it is.
So that kind of, I had another question before we got to that I wanted to ask was, since you worked with Billy, do you have just like this, I don't know, huge pile of games that either didn't make it onto Billy's show that are now like your war chest, like on a rainy day, we can go back to this pile of games that we never got to dig into?
I mean, the thing is, those are different kinds of games. Like Billy on the Street games were for people just randomly out on the streets of New York. And so they had to sort of be funny on their own terms, where we're setting up games for really talented writers and performers to be funny and have a good time. So it's a different kind of game. But the answer is no, because those games belong to Billy. And I respect that.
Cool. We have time for a few more questions. The next one is, looks like right here.
Hi. So with the guests on the show, I was wondering, like, do the writers decide like what games they should get to play, or is it like kind of randomized?
Well, I mean, anything that has to do with a celebrity is going to be a long, drawn-out process of going back and forth with their people. So we basically try to figure out something that they would like and enjoy. Like, I knew Wendy McClendon-Covey from the Goldbergs loves Real Housewives. So we came up with a game where she had to insult mannequins dressed as Real Housewives and then throw a glass of wine at them. And Wendy was super sick the day of the show, but essentially came so she could do that. She just wanted to do that one thing, and it made my day. But yeah, you write up options, and you sort of like give those to the celebrities and have them figure out what they would most enjoy. Like Nick Thune is from Seattle. That's the guy who was playing the guitar. I really wanted him to have to answer questions, the answers to which were either grunge or the Seattle Mariners or Frasier, by throwing fish into buckets, because they love to throw fish in Seattle. And everyone was like, that's a stupid game, we can't do that. And Nick Thune was like, that will make me smell like fish, can I just play the guitar? So that was what we did.
I loved the Carolyn Ray game that you guys did, where she was like lightning quick.
Well, that's a situation where I've loved Caroline Rhea from Sabrina the Teenage Witch forever, and she had this great bit about how if you compliment a woman, she'll always give you like an equal level self-criticism. And so we were like, let's see if you can actually do this. And she was really great. She was really fun and in the moment.
It was pretty amazing.
She's a pro.
How did you, by the way, that episode in particular, you had Melissa Joan Hart, you had Sabrina the Teenage Witch back in the studio. How did you pull that off?
Let's talk about that. Yeah. So we've been trying to put together like a full-on reunion episode. We couldn't do that. So it was the two of them and a random comedian who is my dungeon master in real life. But it was really awesome because Melissa Joan Hart, she's a professional who's been doing this her entire life. She's conservative and religious, and she showed up and she gave a great and professional interview. But the moment Caroline Rhea came out and started talking shit at her, like Melissa Joan Hart just had her eyes on the prize. All she wanted to do was beat Caroline Rhea. And watching the two of them take their ancient beef with each other, like the best kind of sisterly, affable beef, it was, what more could I ask for than the cast of Sabrina the Teenage Witch trying to be as entertaining as possible for my benefit? Yeah. It was a dream.
You must have been like a Roman emperor just sitting back and just watching gladiators compete in front of you.
Yes. I think of myself as a Roman emperor for many purposes. General decadence of any sort. If I can get a crown of leaves in any situation, I'll generally go for that.
We'll get that.
But when it comes to gladiators, I want them to be like veteran lady comedians.
That's perfect. We have time for one more. I've got one more question for you. It's right over here.
Hi there. What is the best or worst practical joke you've played on someone throughout your career, or that someone played on you?
Okay. I personally don't love practical jokes. I feel like practical jokes are when I worked at Chelsea lately, Chelsea Handler was always pulling practical jokes on people. She convinced me that this e-publicist was super into me, and so was constantly trying to get me to hit on him as hard as possible, and that was super awkward. She was always leaving clams in my desk. That's pranking. I'm not a huge fan. I prefer saying mean things about my friends when they're not there. I feel like that's my version of pranking, just having a very judgmental comment about that top Becky was wearing.
Well, that begs an interesting question before we get out of here, because in doing the research, I saw that you worked for a little bit on Punk'd.
I did work on Punk'd. I shouldn't have worked there. That was not a job I should have had. At that point in time, a friend of mine who was like a dude bro comic was writing on a show at E, and I was just like, can we trade? Can we just tell both of our bosses this is not the place that I should be? Because like, I like writing jokes and stuff, and at Punk'd, we were just figuring out different ways of destroying the cars of supporting characters from Twilight. The year that I worked on it, Ashley Green, Kellen Lutz, like, it was a deep bench and we destroyed so many of their cars. But the important thing you learn from working on Punk'd is what the one restaurant where every actress is only eating that year. Like that year, every actress was only eating at this place called Cafe Gratitude, which was a vegan restaurant where you order by giving an affirmation. Like you don't say, I want the curry bowl, you say, I am humble. And so we had to prank everyone there. So in conclusion, I should not work on prank shows unless I really need to pay my rent and I have no other jobs, in which case, Mr. Ashton Kutcher, call me up.
Well, yeah, I can say, while you shouldn't work on prank shows, you should continue to work on Talk Show, the game show, which people can see Thursdays at 11:10 Central on True TV.
Or through the app.
Guys, please, one more time, make some noise for Guy Branum. Thank you so much.